हे गाइस, स्वागत है आप सबका मेरे चैनल सुनो कहानी में। तो कल की वीडियो में बीच में छोड़ के जाना पड़ा मेरे को, बट टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू कंटिन्यू, सो लेट्स स्टार्ट। ही सेड इन अ लाउड वॉइस, I braced myself automatically. I assumed he was about to confess his love for me, and so my mind was racing, wondering how I could delicately turn him down. But what he actually said next was not what I was expecting at all. Does Miss Ahira come here a lot? Takano's face turned bright red as he spoke. By Miss Ahira, you mean Tomo? That's right. She often pops in her during lunch break from the coffee shop. What do you two talk about? At this point, my fever broke and my anxiety subsided. No, it's not that. Sorry. Wait, do you have a crush on Tomo? I asked. No, it's not that. It's fine. I mean, Tomo is really cute, but since you two work together, I would think you might know her better than I do. No, it's not. No, I am in the kitchen. She is in the dining area, and I am terrible at talking to people. So it seems you really shy, are not you? Does she have a boyfriend? The tone of his voice as Takano asked the question suggested this was a matter of the greatest urgency. Well, now that you mention it, I have never asked her, but Tomo is really cute, likable girl. I would not be surprised if she did have a boyfriend. Would you would you be able to casually ask her for me? Why would I be the one to ask her? Why don't you ask to yourself? You two are good friends, Takako. You could ask her in a way that felt natural, right? And besides, I have never talked like that to a girl before. You are talking to me right now. I said rather than taken aback, didn't I count as a woman? But Takano didn't seem to notice my reaction. I am not asking you to do this for nothing. If you agree, help anytime you come into the coffee shop, I'll pay for your coffee refills. And with that, I wrote off all of these many offenses. My face lighted up. Really? I asked. In that case, I'll come every day. Every day, that might be a bit much. Why do you sound so stinky? You'll be getting close to the woman you have been longing for. All for the mere piece of a cup of coffee. Takano nodded reluctantly in approval, but please promise me you won't mention a word of any of this to her. Understood, I told him, thumping my chest. And that's how Takano and I entered into our secret agreement. I learned that he had secretly been in love with her for a half a year already, but in all that time, apparently he had not done more than say hello to her. He would spend the whole time off in the shadows thinking to himself how wonderful she was. That might sound weird, but you could also see it as an innocent. Having taken on this role, I wanted to try to make things work between them, if at all possible. Tomo might think it was none of my business, but Takano seemed like a respectable young man, polite, rather shy and awkward. If I gave them a chance, I thought it might not be a total bust. So I worked hard not for the free coffee, but for the good of those two young people. The first step was to gather some information to the sly. I came to learn that there was no boyfriend at present, and it seemed there was no one in particular that she had on her mind. Her favorite color was Persian blue, her favorite animal, the dormouse, and her favorite neighborhood was naturally Jimbuchu. All of this seemed perfectly in a line with what I knew of her, but it felt a little bit creepy that Tomo did not know what was really going on. Having obtained this new information, I proceeded to the savior where I passed it along to Takano over a cup of coffee. I leaned over the counter and whispered, "It looks like Tomo's favorite animal is the dormouse." That's amazing, Takano whispered back. Unfortunately, this led to the surprisingly nosy owners starting the false rumor among the regular customers that Takano and I were together. What's more, all my hard work on behalf of our young couple proved totally useless. Takano, whose role was crucial, was not making any attempt to start a conversation with Tomo, which meant we were making no progress at all. He would let her out our victory. Cry when he learned she didn't have a boyfriend, but at this rate, it was going to take a decade before he could even start making small talk with her. It would all come to nothing. I was getting impatient myself. There had to be some way to get these two talking. I thought of everything, and then good news arrived from an unexpected source. One afternoon, when Tomo and I were And Toma and I were enjoying a quiet cup of tea. She told me about the used book festival. Used book festival? What's that? I said, dumbfounded. You don't know about the festival, Takako? Every year in the fall, all the used bookstore in the area set up an outdoor bargain book market. So many people come. The whole neighborhood feels crowded and lively. It's incredible. Oh wow, that sounds fun. Your uncle's doing it too. Of course, really. Yeah, all of the stores join in. I felt embarrassed that my uncle had never said a word about this major event. I bowed solemnly to exact my revenge on him later. I am thinking about going this year, she said. Do you want to walk around together? At that moment, I had a flash of inspiration. Yes, let's go, let's go. I said, jumping uh, at her offer. There might be a way to talk advantage of this. I should tell Takano. The Canada Used Books Festival took place over the course of a week in a late October, and for that week, carts and bookshelves crammed with used books crowded the streets in an open air flea market. The festival was such a success that it surprised me. Book lovers of all ages flocked to the neighborhood, maybe because it was a once a year event, but the turnout went far beyond my expectations. You could feel the energy on Yasukuni and Sakura streets. This old Spia round neighborhood of a second-hand bookshops was now buzzing with activity before noon. It was a pretty spectacular sight. Our Morisaki bookshop joined it too. Of course, my uncle and I brought out the cart with all the used books we would set aside over the previous few days. To our delight, we had twice as many customers as usual to come to the shop. There was an even brave soul who was so worried he would miss out on the sale that he bought a whole cardboard box of our bargain books. As expected, my festival loving uncle was very much in his element. Apparently, he would be coming to the festival almost every year since he was a kid. Thanks to that, he could feel his body start to ache in anticipation when that time of the year come around. After this, it will get cold and the number of people coming to the store will decrease. Significantly, he said, we need to make enough money now to get us through. It was rare of my uncle to talk like a businessman. But despite what he said, when I lost sight of him for a moment, he was off visiting other shops. Of course, it was up to me to bring him back. On the evening of the third day, I ended work early with my uncle's permission and went out with Tomo to have a look around the rest of the festival. And who should appear then, apparently by accident, but Takano, just as we would planned. Oh, what a surprise, he said. Oh, wow. It's, it really is, I replied. We were lousy actors putting on an obvious charade, but Tomo was so innocent that she didn't seem to notice at all. And with that, one of us said, the three of us should walk around together. In front of Tomo, Takano was stiff and tense at first. I whispered to him directly, what are you doing? You look like a rock cop. I have forgotten how to talk, he replied. Even his voice sounded robotic. Tomo overheard him and burst out laughing. Why was it that all the excitement in the neighborhood seemed to lift our spirits as we walked around? The two of them were voltiging around with such animated expressions on their face that they looked like a couple, though at least in Takano's case. There was another major reason for this. When Thomas spoke to him, he looked ecstatic, like he was running through a field of flowers. The look on his face was so funny that I struggled not to burst out laughing. Why was it all? We bumped into Sabu as we were rummaging through the books at the special booth set up at the main Jimbachu intersection. Sabu was with his wife and he was holding so many paper bags that he could barely carry them in his hands. Sabu's wife looked so elegant in her perfectly matched kimono that I thought she might be too good for him, but seeing the two of them side by side, I could sense that they had the kind of bond that can only come from years spent together in a good times and in a bad. The feeling was overwhelming. It looked like you have bought quite a lot again, I said to Sabu when I saw all the bags he was holding. He has, his wife said mournfully, giving Sabu a little push from the side. He keeps on buying more books. Our house is overrun with them right now. Would you mind coming by one day and buying all of them? Oh no, please not that, Sabu said, panicking. Didn't I downsize a bit the other day? He put his hands together, begging her. Even after they walked away, we could not stop laughing. The crowds on Yasukuni Street didn't go away once it got dark. We were still happily walking around. We were on a shopping spree, buying all the books we could get our hands on. There is an interesting shop over here, Tomo said and took us to Kinoto Books, which sold grade schools textbooks from the teaching area in the early 20th century. On a whim, I bought a Japanese textbooks Japanese textbooks that cost 2000 yen. The language in it was so old that it ended up feeling surprisingly fresh. In the evening, as all the stores started to close, we went to the Western style restaurant inside the Senseido and ate dinner. By this point, Takano was pretty relaxed. He no longer seemed to see himself in a field of flowers every time he was in front of Tomo. It turned out he knew a lot about foreign literature. While we ate, he spoke so easily about the charms of Faulkner, Capote, and Updike that you never would have believed how awkward he would been earlier. Tomo and I were both properly impressed. In that, in the end, turned out to be fulfilling and exciting day. Afterward, Takano thanked me and said how incredibly grateful he was, but I didn't see any reason to thank me because I was the one who enjoyed in the most. On the last night of the festival, after we closed the shop, I was sitting alone in my room in a daze outside the windows. The street was so quiet and still that the crowd of the past week already seemed like a dream. As I lay on my futon, the ticking of my alarm clock seemed too loud. I was staring up at the ceiling when I felt that strange, uneasy feeling return, that loneliness I would felt when I first arrived here. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. At the door, I felt my shoulders trembling as I turned timidly toward it. I saw in the narrow opening at the edge of sliding door an eye glaring back at me. Ah! I turned out pale and sick, like a heroine in a horror movie. Oh, did I surprise you? A strange, high-pitched voice said, and then a saggy head popped into view. I heaved a sigh of relief. Please don't surprise me like that, uncle. Sorry. He put me he put down the plastic bag he would been holding in the both hands and said, mind if I come in for a second? As he walked into the room, he took out some bottles of alcohol and juice and set them up on the little dining table. He would been even brought potato chips and shredded squid snacks. Didn't you go to the end of festival rap party? I asked. I just want to say hello and then I came back. Besides, I would rather have a rap party with just the two of us, he said with a smile like a mischief said. Now that you mention it, we have never drink together. Well, okay then, let's do it. My uncle spread out all the contents of plastic bags and we had our little rap party. We sipped we sipped our shake listening to the faint chirping of crickets through the open window. The quiet high involved us. Time passed so slowly that it felt like it had come to a halt. My uncle stretched his legs comfortably as he leaned back against the bookshelf. Takako, it looks like you have totally gotten used to life here, he said. I think so too. At first, I was not sure it would work out, but somehow it has. I am fully enjoying this little vacation from my life, I said with a little laugh. I'm glad to hear it, but I'm frustrated too. About what? You know from the beginning that I would totally love it here. Don't feel bad about that. It makes me very happy that you like it. If you want, you can stay here forever. Hearing my uncle's kind words, I felt a little pinch in my heart. Why are you so good to me, though? I know I am your niece, but we had not seen each other in so long because I love you, Takako. He said it without any hint of embarrassment. He seemed almost distracted. I know for you, I might be some relative you don't know that well, but for me, it's different. For me, you are an angel. I almost spit out my beer. No one ever said anything like that to me before. No man, no woman had ever talked to me like that before. That's right. An angel, you are the person who saved me. Saved you? I asked, understanding him less and less. I had no memory of having ever done anything for him. That's right. You saved me. That's just my way of thinking it. But I'm sure it won't be a very interesting story to you. Let's drop the subject. No, I want to hear it, I said sincerely. My uncle stared at me for a moment and then asked if I promised I would not lie. I nodded in agreement, and my uncle started speaking slowly as if he were remembering something from long ago. It started in my late teens. I was feeling depressed. I could not see the value of my life anymore. I could not seem to fit in at home or at school. I just withdrew into myself and closed everything else out. I was overly self-conscious. I had too many idols and ambitious for one person, and because of that, I ended up without a single one I could hold on to. I was an empty person. That's what I was. It seemed like there was absolutely nowhere I belonged in this world. I would never had the slightest inkling that my uncle had felt this way, but I also had no idea what on earth this had to do with me being an angel. You were born right around that time. I first met you when my sister brought you back home to introduce my father and everyone to his new granddaughter. The instant I saw you, so teeny, wrapped up in your blanket, sleeping so peacefully, I thought I might cry. How can I put in? I could feel the mystery of my life filling in my heart. The idea of this child growing up, experiencing so many things for the first time, observing so much, all of it brought me as much joy as if it were happening to me. All of a sudden, I felt as if my twisted heart was being filled with warm light. It was still blurry, but I could feel a sense of purpose growing within me. That's when I made my decision. It was time to stop setting myself up in a cage. It was time to get moving, to look around and learn what I could from it all. Time to get in search of place where I belonged. A place where I could say with confidence that I felt right. All the trips I went on, all the books I read, were the consequences of that decision. In other words, Takako, meeting you led me to kind of epiphany. An epiphany? That's amazing. So that's what I mean when I say you are the one who saved me. That's why I'll do anything for you. My uncle said this so honestly that I did not know how to respond. I felt embarrassed by how childish I had been, getting angry at him and feeling sorry for myself. To think that all of this time he would care so much about me, I felt like I finally understood the reason that he had been so kind to me when I was little. I was an idiot at that time. I thought it was my natural right to be treated so kindly. The joy of realizing that someone loved me that much made my heart want to burst. I tried to make a joke to hold back the tears welling up in my eyes. Uncle, I said, that's not exactly dialogue you should deliver while you are eating shredded squid. My uncle laughed out loud. So, did you end up finding the place you belonged? Well, I guess you might say that, but it took me many years to get there. My uncle nodded quietly. This is it, our little rundown Morisaki bookshop. I had so many aspirations. I flew all over the world only to end up back at the place I would known every bit of since I was child. Hilarious, isn't it? After all the time I came back here, that's when I finally realized it was not just a question of where I was. It was about something inside me. No matter where I went, no matter who I was with, if I could be honest with myself, then that the that was where I belonged. By the time I realized that, half of my life was over. So I went back to my favorite harbor and I decided to drop anchor. For me, this is a scarred place. It's where I feel most at ease. That reminds me, I said a long time ago, Sabu told me that you were the store's savior. He laughed. It's savior. That's pretty big exaggeration. Basically, when my father fell ill, the business was on the brink. All I did was take over and keep it going. At first, my father was pretty strongly opposed to me taking over the shop. It was a tough time in the used books business. After all I was in this irresponsible guy, but I got down on my knees and pleaded with him to untrust entrust the shop to me. So that's how it happened. I mean, I could not sit back and let it all fall apart, could I? This was where I spent most of my childhood. I would sit at the counter next to my father, quietly reading books like Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales, and from time to time he would stroke my head firmly with his giant hand. I was truly happy then. It felt like if this place was gone, then all of my memories would disappear too. I could not handle that. I felt absolutely bold over my what my uncle was telling me. I would thought I knew, or at least I had meant to find out what my relationship with my uncle was all about. Didn't I realize that he had his own private worries and pain? Didn't I see that his heart had been crying out for far longer than mine had? Why did not I see how much was going on inside him? Maybe the reason my uncle was always clowning around in front of people was to hide what he was feeling from them. The effort must have been exhilarating to, to look at him. They would never realize what he felt inside. The thought of it made my heart ache. I wish this place could have meant as much to Momoko too. She left just as I was trying so hard to rebuild the business right up until the end. I still had no sense what she was feeling beneath the surface. Uncle, yes, I love this shop. I really do. I had meant to say something more clever, but that was all that come from my mouth. It was true though, and I felt it sincerely. Thank you. This shop might not be in indis- indispensable for most people, but if it matters that much to even just one other person, then I feel I can keep it going for decades. It's like the line from Neo Kinushita in Confession of a Husband. My boat travels slightly, drifting aimlessly at the mercy of the current. That's how I want to live my life with this shop, my uncle said, and then he smiled without saying any more. From that night, I started to I started to think more seriously about my own life. I had found a warm, calm place to stay here, but I could not remain dependent on others' favors. If I did, I would never grow up. My heart would always be weak. I was convinced that if I didn't leave, I would never be able to start over. But the moment I thought that, my fears came rushing back. The thought of leaving frightened me. Just me stay a little longer. In my heart, I was still dependent on others. In the end, I hesitated, and for a long time afterward, I went on living on the second floor of the Morisaki bookshop. Maybe I was waiting for some kind of cue. Then one day, suddenly it arrived. The call came on the 2nd of January. Instead of going home for the holidays, I spent the period around New Year's Day hanging around the bookshop with the store closed until the 5th, and my uncle off on a trip to Hot Spring with his friends from the Booksellers Association. I was all by myself. Over the holiday, Jimbuchi was a ghost town since there were not any homes in the area and the restaurant and companies were closed for the holidays. There was really no one around. There were not even many cars driving down Yasukuni Street. On New Year's Eve, Tomo and I went to visit the Yoshihima Tenjin ceremony, but beside that, my calendar was basically blank. So, so on New Year's Day and the day after, I got up early and strolled around the neighborhood. It felt great to walk around the deserted city. Even the air seemed much clearer. With my scarf fluttering in the wind, I made my way at random, stopping again and again to take another deep breath. When I came home in the evening on the second, there was a blinking light on the cell phone that I had left in the room. I would already deleted the number from my phone, but I recognized it as soon as I saw it in my missed calls. At that moment, all of the good feelings of the day magically vanished. I felt my chest tighten. My finger trembled as I tapped the button and listened to the message. Hey Takako, it's been while. You good? I have got zero plans. At the moment, you want to come out? If you call me, I can be right over. I pressed delete before I had heard the whole message, but it was too late. That awful feeling was already spreading rapidly through my heart. It happened so quickly, and now I would never get rid of that feeling. When the shop reopened after the holidays, the pain in my heart only got worse. I can't put it into words exactly, but it was like there was this things that was heavy and cold, and it was starting to close around my heart. It made me realize once again that none of those big things had ever been resolved. I had just tossed it all aside, waiting for my memories to fade away over time. But even though 6 months had gone by, just hearing his voice from a moment had left me all turned up inside. I understood at last that none of my problems had been solved. The trouble was still there. Takako, is there something you need to get off your chest? I If something going on, talk to me. Around the end of January, as we were closing up the shop, my uncle suddenly said this to me. I was frustrated. How did you do? What do you mean? It's always just looking at you. Your uncle's not blind, he said, almost chuckling. It was just childish. I had been acting like everything was normal, but my uncle saw through the whole thing. You seemed like you were doing really well, so I was not worried about you before, but lately you just seemed really off. When I try to talk to you, it's like you are not here. That's true, I guess. Yeah, it's true. Well, I might not be up to the challenges, but if you talk to me, you might feel a little better. I had not planned on telling anyone about it, but hearing what my uncle said, I realized I was wrong. I had wanted someone to ask me about it. I would wanted someone to console me. I had wanted someone to take care of me. It amazed me how utterly pathetic I was, but my uncle's words had wiped out my defense. As we sat together in my room drinking, I told him the whole story. Outside, a cold winter rain started to fall. We could hear the patter of raindrops hitting the windows. It's not a big deal, I said to preface the story. As I told him what happened, I realized that it actually was not big deal after all. I had lost my boyfriend and I had lost my job. That's it. Midway through the story, it all seemed so insignificant that I could not help but laugh. I fought through it and finished the story, and once I did, I felt a little bit better. The whole time, my uncle just listened without uttering a word as he drank his whiskey with unusual speed. Even when I finally finished my story after an hour of halting and stuttering, he did not say anything for a long time. He stared at the glass in his hand like he was thinking of something. Then, at last, he drained the remaining alcohol from his glass and said, decisively, all right, go make him apologize. We are going to make him say, I'm sorry, I hurt you, I am a terrible person. I was dumbfounded. This was a totally unexpected development. What's now? It's already 11. Doesn't matter. As he said this, my uncle got up and started to go outside. I grabbed hold of his arm in a panic. It's okay, I was being stupid. I just wanted to tell someone what happened. You are drunk, are not you? No, I'm not drunk. Well, maybe a little, but that's not beside the point. Are not you mad, Takako? He took advantage of you. Yeah, I'm mad. I have been getting madder and madder, and I am still mad. That's why we are going. You need to get off this, get this off your chest. If not, the ghost of this thing will haunt you forever. Yes, but I'll be even more embarrassed if it turned into me acting like a little kid trying to bring in my parents when I get in a fight. I sat on the verge of tears. There is nothing to be embarrassed about. My uncle shouted in a voice that seemed shockingly loud coming from someone so small. The sound of his voice reverberated in the little room. There is nothing to be embarrassed about. You are my niece and you matter to me. I already told you, didn't I? I really love you. So I can't allow this guy to get away with that. It's my own ego. I can't let it go. You keep contradicting yourself, and in the end it just comes down to your ego. That's why I'm going to get this off my chest. Even if you don't come with me, I'm still going. Tell me the address. I'm going to give him a beating. A beating? This conversation was suddenly heading in a dangerous direction. Wow, wait a second, that's not going to end well. Someone will call the police, and he was on the rugby team in a high school and the college. If a string bean like you tries to beat him up, you will end up getting beat up 10 times worse. That does not freeze me, my uncle said, but he started to back away a little. Come on, let's not do anything foolish. Let's go back to drinking, I said, forcing a smile as I tried to smooth things over. Don't run away from it, Takako, my uncle said, turning back to me with a terrible seriousness. I'm with you. Don't run away. My uncle looked at me fiercely. I could see the intensity in his eyes for a few seconds. We just stared at each other. He was right. He was right. I could not run away. Nothing would change. Wasn't that obvious? I bit down hard on my tongue. Okay, I get it. Let's go, uncle. My uncle nodded firmly. By the time we arrived in front of his apartment, after 40 minutes in a taxi, the rain was growing more and more intense. We got drenched as we ran to the entrance without an umbrella. This is it. My uncle had stopped in front of the door with a number of 204 on it. My uncle had definitely, I replied. Old memories were staring inside me. Thinking back, I probably only came here 2 times while we were together. When we met at someone's place, it was always mine. The fact that I changed, I was only now realizing there was something weird about this arrangement. Probed how slow I was. Raindrops dripping from his hair. My uncle rang the doorbell without a moment's hesitations. My whole body was trembling from the cold and the stress. I felt no sense to whatever as Stevens. A Stevens a city events. I had felt when I said, I get it, faded away quickly once I was standing in front of Hidaki's place. As I stared at the metal door waiting for a response, deep down I thought about how much better I would feel if we just left and pretend nothing ever happened. But it was already too late. We heard someone rummaging around on the other side of the door, then the click of the door unlocking, after which the door opened about the width of a finger. A low, familiar voice said, Who is it? My uncle immediately grabbed the door and forced it open. Hidaki was standing stock still in the entrance, wearing a tracksuit, his mouth open in a shock. He had probably just fallen asleep. His hair was just messy, and you could see the imprint of his pillow on his cheek. But those solid, well-defined shoulders and almond-shaped eyes were just as I remembered them. It made sense, of course. It's not as if 10 years had passed. In that moment, I felt that stabbing pain in my chest return. Hidaki looked back and forth at the two of us, wide-eyed with surprise, then turned to my uncle and asked, Who are you? I am Takako's uncle. Huh? I am her uncle Sataru. Her mom is my older sister. No, I get that part. I mean, what are you doing here? Oh, I would not be here without a reason. Do we look like we are here to ask you to subscribe to a newspaper? No, I mean, tell me what business you have here. Hidaki said, sounding a little exasperated. I was watching the back and forth between them anxiously. My uncle was being extremely aggressive that night. You want to know why we are here? We are here because you did something terrible to her. Don't act like you have no idea what I am talking about, huh? The volume of Hidaki's voice went up a level, but my uncle was not the least bit daunted. You toyed with her emotions so mercilessly that you drove her to quit her job. Don't you feel anything? Don't you feel any remorse for hurting someone so badly? Hey, I hurt her. Is that what she said? That's right. Are you stupid? Maybe it's because you are her uncle. I don't know, but you think you can just swallow everything this woman says? It's obvious she is lying. She is the one who pushed herself to me. How would she benefit from lying? Isn't it your fault that she quit her job and that she is still suffering? She probably quit because she felt like it. My uncle let out a big sigh when he heard what Hidaki said. It's not use. Takako, this guy returned to the core. Hey, old man, what's what you say? Hidaki came forward into the hall, glaring at my uncle. My uncle was short and Hidaki was so tall that there was an almost 20 centimeter difference in height between them. So even though my uncle was glaring back at Hidaki, the impact was unfortunately limited. Is something wrong? A woman in pajamas poked her head out from the inside the apartment. It was his fiancée, Murno. Thing had gone from bad to worse. Standing there might be embarrassing, it might be unbearable, but there were no way out now. Takako, Murno said. When she noticed me, she forward and said, "What on earth happened? You are all wet." She showed up on no hair. Isn't that right, Takako? Have you gone crazy? What were you thinking of showing up in the middle of the night with this old man in tow? Tell him, Takako. Frightened, I looked and saw everyone was staring at me. How had I ended up here? I felt pierced by their glances. I wanted to disappear in a puff of smoke. They were all waiting silently for me to say something. I ransacked my brain for something to say that might somehow bring the situation to a peaceful end. I was just in the neighborhood and thought I would drop by. I was hoping he would return a book I had lent him. I wanted to congratulate you on your engagement. No, that was all wrong. What I wanted to say was something else entirely. Why was I here? To get something off my chest. If I just told them what they wanted to hear, that would not fix anything. I told my heart to brace itself. Everyone, everyone's attention was focused on my mouth. I took a deep breath. My uncle was looking at me with encouragement. Tears formed in my eyes. And at that moment, I could feel all the emotions that had been building in my chest wheeling up within me. There was no time to think. Suddenly, the words came pouring out of my mouth in a torrent. I came because I wanted to apologize. You might have just been playing around, but it was not like that for me. I really loved you. I am a person. I have feelings. You might be at me. You might look at me and see just a woman you can take advantage of. But I think about things. I breathe. I cry. Do you know how much you hurt me? After that, I was at a loss for words. I was sobbing wet from head to toe from the rain and the tears and my runny nose. But after all this, I had finally been able to say words I had wanted to say that night in the restaurant. Well said, Takako, my uncle said, putting his arm around me and drawing me close to him. What are you going to do? She just told you honestly how she feels. You have to respond. Hidaki hung his head for a long time, saying nothing. Finally, he muttered quietly, "This is ridiculous. I don't have time to hang around with people like you who have nothing to do with. I am going to bed. Unless you want me to call the police, you had better to go home." After he said this, he quietly closed the door. We could hear the lock click on the inside of the door. Then it was all quiet in the hall. Hey, my uncle stared at the door with the intensity of a bullfighter. Then he banged on it loudly with his fist. I held on to him desperately from behind. That's enough, uncle. But Takako, it was enough really. I feel better, maybe better than I have felt in my whole life up till now. It's amazing. This might be the first time I have ever raised my voice and told another person what I really felt. I said and then burst out laughing at my uncle with my face covered in tears and snot. If you say so, Takako, my uncle murmured, seemed a little dissatisfied. It's really okay. Let's go home then, shall we? At this rate, we will both catch a cold. Facing the door, I murmured a final goodbye to the place and then I left it all behind. In the taxi on the way home, we barely said anything. My uncle, having exhausted all his energy, lay slumped in the back seat. I sat beside him, set free at last from anxieties lost in my own thoughts. It was not solely Hidaki's fault. I had known that from the beginning. I was hauled for to blame for the way things turned out. It was my carelessness and lack of will that made the situation possible. But I had just needed to say what I was feeling, no matter what. Even if someone told me I was being selfish, I had to share what I was thinking. I had been suffering because I was too weak to do that. Maybe Hidaki never believed he had any reason to be blamed, and he felt caught off guard by my reaction. But I still needed to vent what I was feeling to him. If not, I could not move on. No matter how much time passed, I had still be stuck. If my uncle had not given me the chance, I would have just been left holding on these feelings forever. I turned the words around inside my mind, trying to express how grateful I was to my uncle, but nothing came out. In the end, the only thing I could come up with was just one word, so I said it to him sincerely. Thanks. My uncle Smiler pulled me by the shoulders closer to him, sensing the warmth of his body next to mine. I felt a wave of relief well up from the within me. I was protected. There was someone who worried about me, who got angry because what happened to me mattered as much as if it happened to him. For a long time, I had let myself feel like I was totally alone in this big world, but all along there was someone close by, thinking about me, looking out for me. That made me immensely happy. The taxi we were riding in drove silently across the rainy, neon-streaked city. It was right after that I decided to leave the shop, as strange as it might sound. That event gave me the boost I needed. All my troubles had vanished, and my body felt light. At last, I was ready to leave. I found a new place where I could live starting in March. It was pretty far away from the shop, but it was the best I could do. I still had a lot of question about what I was going to do next for the next time being. However, I would have gotten a part-time position at a little design from through my old job. When I told my uncle I intended to leave, he seemed quite surprised. You don't have to rush into any decision, he said in a panic. But I had already made my decision. I have been enjoying this little vacation from my life for a long time already. If I don't go now to look for the new place, to look for the place where I belong, I might end up never finding it. My uncle listened to me, but he did not say anything else. The month before I moved to my new place, I saved my last days at the Morisaki bookshop. I worked diligently and spent my free time reading lots of books. Out of gratitude, I also did a deep clean of the shop and the second floor, and I even carefully organized the collection of books that was crammed haphazardly into the spare room on the day I arrived. I let the regular customers and everyone at the Xavier know that I was leaving. They were all sorry to see me go. It almost made me cry to discover they cared so much about me. Savu went so far as to say that I should marry his son and join his family, and it seemed like he was actually going to bring him by to set us up. Takano and Tomo had a little away party for me. We gathered around a hot pot in my room on the second floor of the shop and celebrated late into the night. Tomo told me how sad she was that her book loving friend would not be around anymore. She was that her book. Next year, she said, let's go to the festival together again, okay? That night, Takano whispered to me that he had taken Tomo to the movies in Shibuya a bit earlier. They did not seem to be couple yet, but given where Takano had stared, this sound like a substantial progress. I was so happy to hear it. I actually said, not bad, and slapped him as hard as I could on his slender back. It was after this that Murano, Hidaki's fiance, contacted me unexpectedly and we met up at the coffee shop to talk. My biggest worry about that night was that we would end up being terribly rude to her as well. I headed to the place we would agreed upon, planning to offer my sincere apology, but once we were face to face, she was the one bowing deeply to apologize to me. She said she would had her suspicions about his behavior earlier on, but after my unusual appearance that night, everything clicked for her. She questioned him again and again until he finally confessed. Until that night, she said she never would have guessed that I was the other woman. I kept trying earnestly to apologize to her. I said I am to blame too, but she just shook her head. She said the wedding was off now. When I heard that, I rushed to apologize again, but she said firmly, it's not your fault, Takako. That guilty feeling stayed with me, though. When I told my uncle the next day what had happened, he said, she's right. Isn't it better to find It's better to find out now instead of after they are married when it's too late. My uncle might be biased since he despised Hidaki, but when I realized he had a point, I felt a weight being lifted off my shoulders. My uncle and I spent my last night at the shop drinking coffee together on the veranda on the second floor, staring up at the dark winter sky. He gave me a giant stack of old books to remember my days at the bookshop. He said they were all the books that had made a deep impression on him when he was young. Peeking into heavy paper bag, I saw he would he would he would fill it with books by some pretty serious writers, people like Takehiko Fukunaga and Kazu Hazaki. We spent our last night together feeling really at ease with one another. I'll never forget what my uncle said to me then. There is one thing I want you to promise me, he said first as preamble. Then he said, don't be afraid to love someone. When you fall in love, I want you to fall in love all the way. Even if it ends in heartache. Please don't live a lonely life without a love. I have been so worried that because of what happened, you will give up on falling in love. Love is wonderful. I don't want you to forget about those memories of people you love. They never disappear. They gone on warming warming your heart as long as you live. When you get old like me, you will understand how about it. Can you promise me? I get it. I promise. I said, I think this place taught me that, so you don't have to worry. In that case, you will be alright no matter where you go. Thank you, uncle. The day of my departure, I stood in the morning light, staring at the Morisaki bookshop, such a teeny old wooden building. I lived here, I thought, but I could hardly believe it. I remembered. I remained where I was for a while, my breath turning white in the cold air. The street was enveloped in soft morning light. None of the store had opened yet, and everything around seemed so profoundly peace and quiet. Quiet. I stood up straight, faced the shop, and bowed deeply. I vowed never to forget what my life at the bookshop had given me. My uncle took the trouble to see me off, despite how early it was. I thanked him from the bottom of my heart. He had become an enormously important part of my life. It's funny, I never would have imagined things turning out this way when I first arrived here. As we said goodbyes, my uncle's mainly attitude of the night before suddenly disappeared, and he let himself sob like a child in front of everyone. I can't take it. Please don't go, Takako, he said, holding my hand so tightly I thought he might never let go. I, I can come back and see you anytime, I said. It seemed backward, but I was now consoling him. You take care of yourself for me, will you? And I look after the shop no matter what. It felt like if I stayed there for a second longer, I would lose my nerve to leave. So I quickly said goodbye to my uncle, who was still trying to hold on to me, and walked away down the street. I kept on moving, making it to the end of Sakura Street without looking back. As I was walking, the memories came rushing back and tears filled my eyes. But I somehow held on and walked to the I kept on end of the street. Then a hunch Then, a, then on a hunch, I stopped and snuck a look behind me. I saw my uncle standing right in the middle of the street, waving to me, looking so small in the distance. Seeing him like that, I could not hold my any longer. I burst into tears and started to sob. I waved back to him with my face crumbled, and tears came pouring down my cheeks. In response, my uncle waved back even more enthusiastically. Enthusiastically, I could see the morning light shining behind him. I shouted, "Take care," turned around, and walked into the crowds of Yasukuni Street. Seeing me sobbing as I marched down the street, the people I passed have surely thought there was something wrong with this weird woman. But I did not care in the slightest. After all, I was crying because I wanted to cry, and these were the happiest tears I would ever know. In the brisk early morning air, I sensed a faint sign of the spring to come. I looked straight ahead and kept going. सो गाइस, पार्ट वन ख़त्म हो गया है. पार्ट टू हम शुरू करेंगे नेक्स्ट वीडियो में. फॉर नाउ, थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग. डोंट फॉरगेट टू लाइक, शेयर एंड कमेंट. गुड बाय.